physiotherapist and heavyweight calisthenics athlete, Yunis.
I learned planche with no bands at all. There should always be like some kind of only bodyweight stuff in your trainings. The most useful stuff that actually got me the full planche were progression holds. Think of the actual feeling of holding the scale. If you're a bit taller and heavier, deep inside of your mind, you tell yourself, I'm too heavy, I'm too tall, and you keep on telling that to yourself. But that doesn't mean you will not be able to achieve the skill. I don't think you should overcomplicate stuff. At some point, it's really not that good. In some situations, you should just like do it and not think too much about it.
So today we had a conversation with physiotherapist and also the German Heavyweight Calisthenics Champion of 2023, Yunis. We discussed a lot about his personal journey in calisthenics towards this point, and there we also discussed a lot of different tips and tricks for beginners, but also we discussed how to learn the Maltese, which is his signature move. This is actually for him very hard because he's very tall and also a heavyweight calisthenics athlete. And there we also discussed a lot of progressions, but also we discussed about injury prevention, which is very important for a calisthenics skill like that. And for the rest, we talked about his future plans, which is after he already became a physiotherapist to also start studying medicine. So we think you'll get a lot of value from this podcast episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, my name is Ella for Calisthenics Worldwide, and today we will be interviewing a very special guest. So on the podcast, we try to create a platform for anyone who's important for the calisthenics scene. These can be athletes, they can be coaches, and also, for instance, competition organizers. But today we have physiotherapist and heavyweight calisthenics athlete, Yunis. So thank you for coming.
Hi, Ella. Thank you for having me.
Not a thing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Not a thing. We're very happy to have you. We think this will be a very interesting conversation. And to start at the beginning, we are very curious on your past experiences in sports, but also specifically how you got started with calisthenics.
Okay, so where do I start? Basically, I didn't have a good background when it came to strength sports.
All right.
I did football, like soccer, for 10 years, and then I did like 1 year of kickboxing.
All right.
And then it suddenly stopped during puberty. I did nothing at all. I was playing a lot of computer games.
All right.
Yeah, it was this video game addiction phase. And all of a sudden, I was thinking to myself when I became like 17, I was like, man, this cannot go. This cannot keep on going like this.
Right.
And yeah, I did a hard cut. I said from one to another day, I have to change something. And at that time, I came across a lot of calisthenics videos on YouTube.
Right.
And there are people like Frank Medrano, Chris Heria, I mean, the OGs. Yeah, everybody knows them. And I think one of the first videos I saw was Bar Wars. Do you know it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Bar Wars.
Right.
It's basically these videos where they have like special kind of exercises which you need to do in a specific order, and the one who does them the fastest wins the competition.
Yeah.
And this was like a start point for me. It was not easy. It was not easy in the beginning. It was definitely not easy because there was not a big community when I started. It was in the end of 2017 where I really started. And again, I had no background in strength sports whatsoever. I didn't even have sports theory in my school. So, yeah.
So did you start with endurance or like with street lifting? Because that's basically the strength wars, right? Like they do weighted dips on rings, stuff like this. So did you start with that because that inspired you, or?
Yes, to be honest, it was like really chaotic.
Yeah.
I was just doing trial and error principle.
Right.
I was saying, okay, I'm gonna do like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups,
Right.
100 crunches, and basically, in the beginning, whatever you do, most of the times, especially if you're young and able to recover really fast, really well,
Right.
you're going to gain whatever you do.
Right.
And this is actually a fact that helped me. But soon I realized, okay, I need to change something. I need to start training smarter. And it basically kept on going like this for 1 month. I was sort of trying to do my reps every day for 1 month straight.
All right.
And after 1 month, I came across, I was searching on the internet, on Facebook, where, like, if there is even a group in my area that I can train with. And I found these guys, they were called Calisthenics Mannheim.
All
They're
right.
still a present group in Mannheim.
Cool.
And there was one park at that time. And I went to this park, and I remember the first time when I came there. I mean, you see all these guys really jacked in the summer, and you're like looking at yourself, and man, I don't even want to go there. It's embarrassing, you know.
Yeah.
But like, to be honest, it was totally not that way. The people, the guys were like really, really nice people.
Yeah.
They were really welcoming. The community was really, really helping me. And I was feeling welcomed immediately. And it sort of pushed me to really take the sport a bit more serious and try to build up some basic strength.
Nice. Yeah, it can be kind of an obstacle at first, right? Where you think it's very intimidating, but then when you get over that, usually the community is very indeed welcoming, and also
Exactly.
everybody helps each other and supports each other. So that's super nice as a basis. So then you got into basically getting your basic strength. So when did you get into statics? And by the way, to be clear, you are how much kilos? How much do you weigh?
So the last time I measured, I was at 84, 83
All right.
kg. The maximum I weighed was like 85 to 86
All right.
kgs.
And how tall?
But I am 186 centimeters right now.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah. And at the time when you started building your basic strength, and how much did you weigh? Do you know?
I don't actually remember.
Oh.
I didn't track because I didn't really. In the beginning, it wasn't the idea to transform my body. I was rather interested in learning skills and mastering my body weight.
Right.
So I was not. Of course, everybody just tries to gain a bit of aesthetic looks to them, but it was never really the first number one priority thing for me.
So which skills did you want to learn at the beginning?
Again, so the most basic skills that really impressed me, of course, the muscle up for every beginner.
Right.
Muscle up, handstand, and V-sit as well. But I don't know, somehow I had really good requirements for the V-sit. I didn't really have to train it that much.
Right.
And it was a impressive skill for me in the beginning, but since I unlocked it sort of on the way without really struggling to train it, it's never been such a huge deal for me or huge skill.
Right. Was it at the beginning the goal to compete in the future, or did you just how did you get to the competition last year?
In the beginning, I thought I would never thought I would compete, to be honest, because I was really going for quality only in the beginning, and I wanted to be really, really strong to one day compete. So when I did my first competition, it was 2022. It was also the German Championship.
Yeah.
And I did not perform the best because I didn't really understand the rule system perfectly. I did some preparation for the comp, but it could have gone different. I did some mistakes before my rounds, where I maybe pushed too much caffeine. And I mean, you know the feeling if you're getting like too excited you have no control anymore.
Right.
And basically that's a lot of things that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Right.
And compared to last year, I learned from it and I tried to improve on it. And to be honest, it was like really, in the beginning, I didn't even want to compete last year.
Okay.
But it was like a really close call to say, yeah, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Was it like spontaneous?
It was spontaneous, yeah.
Cool. And then you win.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And only with doing statics as well. So
yeah.
I can.
But it was freestyle comp.
It was a freestyle comp, yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
It was because I read the rule system and I tried to match my combos according to the rule system, so I can get the maximum amount of points with the things I can do, basically.
All right, and so you're basically doing only statics. You've ever thought about doing freestyle, or?
Yes, I thought about doing freestyle, but I'm a safe guy.
All right.
So I need these mats. I need safety around me.
Right.
And it's just a little bit too risky for me to just go to a random park and try out some shrimp flip or 360 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I understand. So you became a physiotherapist. When did you start your education?
It was in 2019, end of 2019.
All right.
And I actually got into physiotherapy because of the sport.
Right.
Because I've met a lot of physiotherapists on the in the parks, and I really like their approach of structured and quality training.
All right. Cool.
And also injury management, prevention, stuff like this.
All right. Very cool. And how did the fact that you started learning during your journey, basically? So you started at 2017, you said. Then 2 years later, basically you got your strength up and maybe started doing some skills. And then after that, you got more into statics, and you already knew bit by bit more and more on everything you learn at physiotherapy. So how did that influence your training?
Yeah, so I was training a lot. I've read the book from Stephen Lowe. I think it's a classic, Overcoming Gravity.
Right. Yeah, that's classic.
And there are some basic training principles. But to be honest, I always tried some kind of tried to bring in some kind of structure and really like trying to focus on textbook progress.
All right.
But for my friend, one of my friends, it worked really well. But for me, I could sort of use it as a leading point, but progress is never really linear.
Right.
And especially when it comes to skills. And skills, I don't know, I trained, I had, the first time I brought in some structure for planche, for example, was when I saw this guy on YouTube. His name was he's still there, Calisthenics. And he was basically explaining the correct form in a really, really like accurate way. And he was also explaining some exercises and so on. And my training for 9 months, in these 9 months, I started to train planche really seriously, was just a ton of leans, planche leans, really understand the planche position, really understand the activation of my shoulders, my elbows, my wrists, my scapula, my hips, everything.
Everything.
It's sort of the the pattern sort of burns into my brain.
Right.
So I can do it automatically. And I did a lot of leans, a lot of basics, pseudo planche push-ups, and everything you guys know. And on the sideway, I also tried to learn handstand push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good base because I did 3 years of basics before, and I also was able to do pike push-ups and had a handstand.
Right.
So handstand push-ups helped me a lot, and also some conditioning exercises. I did some military press.
Okay.
In the end of the workouts sometimes, and I did some serratos presses. It's basically if you have the weight like this and your elbows flared in and try to push like this, and you really try to protract and feel your serratos.
Yeah.
But the most useful stuff that actually got me to achieve the full planche were progression holds. Really try to focus and really try to think of the actual feeling of holding the scale.
Right.
Because it's everybody talk nowadays, especially on ebooks or something like this, like Valentin or a lot of strong athletes, they are talking about imagining you really have to visualize the skill exactly, and that's a really important point.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned a lot of good exercises and progressions and things that helped you. So would you recommend, where would you recommend beginners to start? So you said you did 3 years of strengthening. Would you recommend everybody to do that, for instance? And you said also you were for 9 months really focusing on leans and those exercises. Would you recommend that to others as well when you look back at it?
So looking back, I could have definitely started to train statics earlier.
All right.
But in my case, since I had to basically teach most of the stuff myself,
right.
I didn't have someone who helped me with statics or in general training.
Yeah.
Of course, there's the community that were giving tips here and there, but it's different from really giving high quality knowledge to someone when it comes to building strength in the fastest way possible.
Right.
I think if you have a good plan and if you're literally starting from zero, a good half year or maybe 1 year of training basics will help you a lot and will be totally enough if you do it the right way.
All right.
It should be a good enough base to slowly implement statics training as well then.
And what would be the right way?
To implement statics?
No, the year you're talking about or the half year. How would you train your basics? What would be the right way to do it?
There's a lot of factors. Basically, you should know how to structure your training. You should go for the basics. You should try to learn the handstand. The handstand is really going to be helpful. It's not a must, but it's going to be really helpful. I have one friend who actually learned planche before he learned handstand.
That's crazy.
And now when he's trying to do planche presses, he's struggling in the handstand sometimes, and that's
I can imagine.
That should not happen normally.
Yeah, right.
You should think of the rest times in between the sessions, because I used to train every day till maximum failure, and I don't know how I was able to do it, but it was not the smartest way. So you should actually keep the recovery time for specific trainings in mind. And for strength, if you do good strength work, the optimal time of break is I think it was 72 hours or something like this.
All right. That's quite a lot.
Yeah, So for me, if I train planche, for example, or push, and have 2 days of rest in between, and on the third day, I feel like maybe at 100% power again.
All right.
If you train volume, you can train early as well, but then you have to vary the intensity. But in the beginning, to come back to your point, in the beginning, you can really train linear. That means you can basically have the same workout and try to do maybe one more rep in one set more, or maybe in 1 week try to do one rep of each exercise more if it's possible. If not, it's totally okay. And especially in the first sets. And if you go on to the next week, in the next week you can say, okay, I will do one set more or something like this. You can try to gradually like
Build it up.
Build it up, exactly.
All right. And then you basically, to keep track, you write it down in a notebook, or how do you make sure that you know you're progressing?
I used to write it down on a notebook. It's a good way to see your progress, but at the moment I'm way too lazy, to be honest. So
Okay.
yeah.
But for beginners, maybe it can be motivating,
Yes,
right? And you
definitely.
like every time if
Definitely.
you write it down.
Especially when it comes to basics. And it can also help you to keep track of those reps and sets if you maybe forget how many sets you did.
Yeah, right.
Which probably will happen to most of you guys.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. But all right, so that's super helpful already. How do you then structure your training? Because you were for you now. Yesterday you told me that you do planche, front lever, and then a day off. So that's the 2 days off for one specific exercise. But you also were talking about cycles, for instance. So are there any things that beginners should know when they start off, how they should structure?
So in the beginning, you will gain whatsoever. It's called basically newbie gains.
Right.
You will have to structure your workouts more when it gets more specific. If you want to reach certain goals, it can be helpful to really structure your training and periodize. Periodization is like the keyword here.
All right.
And most of the people, they're starting with hypertrophy, volume, peaking. Not necessarily in this order, but these are like three helpful
those are the periods, basically.
periods people tend to use. And one period can be 3 weeks or 5 weeks.
All right.
It depends. It's really specific. Sometimes for me, certain kinds of periods work better when I do them for 5 weeks, and certain kinds of periods work better when I do them for 3 or 4 weeks. And the ones I do for 3 weeks or 4 weeks are usually the ones with peaking.
All right.
So where I try to really put in maximum strength combos or something like this.
Yeah.
And then I usually try to do a deload. And it's really important, if you do a deload for 1 week. I've had people saying, I did a deload, and then I ask them, and they feel really weak afterwards. And then I ask them, what did you do? Yeah, I did nothing. It's not supposed to be like this. In deloads, you have to still train, but just like
40%
crank down the intensity really, really much.
Yeah.
And then you will recover and hopefully get good results and progress.
So after every period, you do a deload week, or not per se?
Yes, in the ideal world, yeah.
All right. Got it. Yeah, that
But
could be.
again, it's skills, and there's this side you can make use of this kind of training, but also there's like people who are purely training according to feeling. 100%. And I also tried it, and I actually achieved my full planche training like this.
All right.
I did basically for 9 months, I did the same exercises, and it was really boring, you could say. But I don't know, it for me, it never got boring, since I was really burning to learn the skill, burning inside, and I had the fire, you know?
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn it. And when I learned it, I did 1 or 2 days of rest in between sessions. Then I did a few attempts, and then I did like maybe 5 sets of attempts with progression holds. Not I lean into the skill and fall immediately after, like 1 second or less.
That doesn't do much.
Because you will have to actually get in some hold time, so it will be effective. Otherwise, it won't help you.
Yeah.
Then I did some leans. Maybe sometimes I put in some pseudo planche push-ups. And then I basically did some conditioning, like max strength till I was really worn out, till I was feeling, oh man, I'm getting tired. These were basically really hard sessions, and combined with work, you're not getting in that good of a recovery. It usually took me 1 or maximum 2 days till I could train again.
Right.
And I had some training sessions where I tried to peak for a full planche hold. And the first time I held a full planche, it was with good form. It was not like perfect form, but it was acceptable good form with a good line.
Yeah.
It was for 4 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. When was this? When did you achieve the first hold?
Oh man, I think, was it in 2020 and to the end of 2020, I think.
All right.
Yeah. But I've also had like periods where I was injured for a longer time.
All right. Okay.
And to come back is like really frustrating, especially for your motivation.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably know.
Yeah, I definitely know.
Yeah. So
that can be very frustrating. So, but in the ideal world, of course, you would steer away from those like injuries, like my dislocated elbow. Indeed. Thanks for the help, by the way. And also, so you said that when it comes to these specific skills, and I want to talk about one specific skill as well, because you are basically like your main thing is Maltese, and I was wondering like how long did it get you from learning the planche, and how long anyway have you've done 3 years of statics, you said, right?
Yeah.
So like in 3 years you've learned the Maltese, and at your heavy weight and at your height, this is very impressive. So how did you get there? Like,
okay, so you need to really, first off, I think you need to understand that Maltese and planche, they are not the same pattern of push.
right.
So there's a lot of people that do a Maltese, but for me, the real Maltese has to be a certain width, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are doing like a wide dead planche.
Right.
And with that, your scapula is not engaged in a good way, I would say.
All right.
So how I learned the Maltese, basically I just did some attempts. I tried to go further, like wider and wider every time. And that's the main thing. And I had to understand the technique because it's way different from the planche still. It certainly really is like a dead planche, but you still have to focus on keeping the form in your scapula, because if you do a dead planche, people tend to like really fall into their shoulders, and I don't prefer that form in the Maltese.
Right.
Yeah, that's basically it. So I just did some attempts, got wider and wider, and understood how to grip. If you like, there's a certain way you should not grip in the Maltese.
All right.
You should, for example, not
Yeah.
overextend, like dorsiflexion. Yeah.
Would be too heavy for the wrist.
Yes, because especially then when you're trying to expand on that and try to learn presses, Maltese presses, and you try to press like this, it can really injure your wrist. And I had this injury as well. Yeah.
So how can people prevent that? Of course, good technique. And you said you go wider and wider, but also did you do a lot of Maltese leans and starting with straddle, I presume, and then just build that up for holds as well, and then eventually get into it? Or did you just use that method?
Actually, I didn't do... There's some people that swear on doing holds with elastic bands.
Right.
There's some guys that are saying, okay, do some leans. And I still think leans are like the best thing you can do. I'm not a fan of banded holds that much.
How come? Why?
Because I think it doesn't feel natural. I never, to get back to another topic, I learned planche with no bands at all.
Right.
I was strictly against bands, and it worked. It just felt odd, because if you want to learn a skill, you have to understand the skill first, and a lot of beginners do the mistake of having really bad activation when they are doing banded work.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They are maybe holding the skill, but it's not really... You cannot implement it in a real hold.
Right.
Because the activation is so bad that it's not mimicking the real skill good enough. You know?
Yeah, I get your point. I saw in a video as well where they said don't use any heavy bands on training for front lever or for planche or Maltese. Just really the smallest one or one above it, and for the rest, that's it. Indeed, because otherwise you don't do the right skill. But still, you used yesterday bands, and this is just strictly for volume then, and because you already have the skill.
I think bands are good if the bands are not extremely heavy,
right.
And if you want to build volume, then bands can be helpful, and but you should not 100% rely on bands. There should always be like some kind of only bodyweight stuff in your trainings, even if it's like 3 to 5 sets of only holds.
Yeah. It's
really important, so you don't miss how the skill actually feels.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So when it comes to like you did the leans, right, and you went wider and wider. Did you also do like straddle and maybe even advanced tucked Maltese, or like is this not a thing to try? Is it different?
I think it's good for conditioning, to be honest, and you should do them. But I had a really strong base when I learned Maltese.
Right.
I had a good planche before trying to go for Maltese. And my tendons and ligaments and joints were adapted to some part, that's to some degree already. Yeah. So I had a really good base for it. The only thing that I noticed when I tried to do Maltese, if you do Maltese, you will feel it here. Like your thumb, right? Your thumb is really one of the joints that are sort of getting attacked.
A lot of pressure,
by the Maltese, and also your distal bicep tendon. So bicep conditioning, curls in different kinds of positions,
All right.
especially lengthened or straight arm stuff will definitely help you with that.
And how do
basically it.
you train for the thumb? Like you said, the straight arm stuff for this, but the thumb, like how do you? Is there a specific way of holding it or of strengthening it so that you feel less pain there, or do you just have to get used to it?
It's really important to grip the bar tightly.
All right.
It could be painful in the beginning, but you have to get used to this position.
Okay.
Because if you're leaning, if you have too much pressure in this front area, there's a high likelihood that you'll get injured.
Right.
Because the pressure is like way too much.
Yeah.
Right there.
So I want to talk a bit about how to prevent injuries, also about recovery. But first of all, what's the prerequisite to get into Maltese training? Because you said you could already do a full planche. Is that a prerequisite, or can you already start when you can do a straddle planche, for instance, already get into? Because you said there's a difference between the two, and it's like really a different technique. So yeah, how does it differ, and when can you start?
To be honest, I think I don't know especially, but I think Dailong learned Maltese before planche.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of it.
All right.
If I would coach someone, I would probably say, go to learn a good form planche before, and then try to learn the Maltese.
To make sure that your straight arm strength is good enough and
Exactly.
Right.
You could try to do some wide straddle stuff, but it feels way different from a full Maltese.
Right.
There's a big difference between straddle and full Maltese, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, of course. But it's like a progression for it, right?
Yes, but a lot of people, especially when it comes to straddle, they tend to straddle way too wide.
Okay.
And what happens to your hips if you straddle way too wide is you fall into a APT,
right,
anterior pelvic tilt. And in a APT, it's really hard to maintain your posterior chain active and also have the correct core activity or activation for a full planche or Maltese hold.
Right. So the APT is super important. The protraction, the
so
PPT is very important. Yeah,
exactly.
So otherwise, you get into ATP. Smart words, right? But so how do you prevent? Because it's such a intense skill. As you said, there's so many factors. Like there's the thumb, the elbow, and the positioning of the hips, of the shoulders, and everything, scapula. So how do you prevent injuries in this? Like, is it really just slowly progressing, or indeed being able to do a full planche first and then getting into it? So how do you go about it?
I would say don't rush it. Really take your time to say, okay, my wrist feels good now, my biceps feels good now, and I'll do like maybe 2-3 sets of Maltese attempts or a bit more intense exercises. But I've tried to put in a lot of volume when I was weaker in Maltese. It wasn't really helpful since there was still a lot of pressure on my joints, and it leads to me having a lot of pain, and I wasn't really progressing that much. Really taking my time and resting and doing Maltese when I feel good is what helped me, actually.
Right.
And if you have a certain point of mastery in the skill where you can say, okay, I can hold it most of the times without zero pain, this is the time where you can say, okay, I want to build up a lot of volume.
All right. So basically quality over quantity.
In the beginning, yes.
All right.
In the beginning, yes.
And then build up the volume.
Afterwards, you will need quantity as well, because you cannot always go for 100% quality, especially when it comes to skills.
Right.
it's just not doable, because maybe you have a bad day, maybe you work and you had like a 10-hour shift or 8-hour
Right.
shift, and then your brain is worn out, you lack focus, you're tired, you didn't eat. There's so many factors, you didn't recover.
Yeah.
And for skills, you should be fresh, like not only with your muscles, joints, ligaments, whatsoever, but also your brain should be fresh, and you should focus on should be able to focus on the skill.
How do you stay fresh? Like work less or just what do you do?
One thing that I try to optimize myself, like quite recently actually, was sleep quality. And like I'm not like really, I don't know that much in the field to right now, but I just tried a few simple things, just like dimming the lights before going to sleep, really trying to make the room as dark as possible, getting rid of all the blue light 1 hour or half hour before sleep, maybe reading a book. And I really noticed one time I had like 6 hours of sleep, but the quality was really good. I felt like I really had a deep sleep.
But either way, you want to get a decent amount of sleep. You want to the things you mentioned. I think also it's good to have silence in the room to prevent a lot of noise. Of course, sometimes if you live in a city, this can be very hard. But the tips you already gave are like the main takeaways, I think, when it comes to sleep.
Definitely, yeah. But
and it worked for you.
It worked, yeah. It worked. I felt more fresh. Of course, I still have days where I have like not the best sleep, but yeah, just recently started, so that's all I can tell.
And what else do you do to stay focused during a training and like make sure that you have the skills on point?
So to be focused, like I really like to watch people that motivate me.
All right.
In between sets maybe, and sometimes it wakes me up as well. I'm sort of a caffeine addict as well, so
all right.
If I really want to perform good, I sometimes I drink coffee, sometimes I drink an energy drink. Yeah,
all right.
That's basically it. And music, of course, most important part.
What kind of music you listen to?
Yeah, I think it's every statics athlete listens to music like this. I would say it's wave and hardstyle, and it's like I have different kinds of but for training it's most of the time it's wave, hardstyle, rock. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah, this can definitely help to keep you focused.
To unleash the beast.
As you regularly do. All right, nice. And what else do you do to recover properly and make sure that you're ready for the next training?
What I do to recover, I try to get in the proteins that I need, and I also take a few supplements. I take ashwagandha right now, and glycine, and creatine.
All right.
And on top of that, I try to maintain a good amount of protein intake. And since I'm like paying more attention to protein, the right protein consumption, I definitely feel a bit like way healthier and less injured in a way. I feel like I'm recovering faster.
All right. And what do you take for proteins? Do you drink protein shakes, and when do you actually?
I try to like get most of the protein from food sources, like actual food sources, eggs, meat as well, cheese, less cheese, because I have an allergy, lactose intolerant, and nuts as well. but I try to not eat too many nuts, since nuts are really good, but they have a lot of calories. So you can easily gain way too, like taking way too much calories, and
I think it's like a hand of nuts is enough for a day, like 28 grams.
Yes,
I looked
exactly.
up once. And you said yesterday, maybe jokingly, that you wanted to lose some weight. Do you still want to lose some weight, or is there?
Definitely.
All right.
I've tried some, like, since the last competition. I've tried some different kind of diets, actually. For the German Championship, the first one I tried was just intermittent fasting, and it helped me. I lost maybe 1 or 2 kgs in 2 months, 3 months, and then I also combined it with keto later on. On keto, I felt really light and really good, to be honest. But it was hard in the beginning. It was really, because if you cut out carbs completely from now to then, your body will have to adapt to it, and it wasn't really a good phase. I was thinking of stopping it, like, after 1 week as well.
Right.
But I kept going, and I luckily adapted and did it for like 2 months. And at that time, I was at the lowest I was weighing was 78 kg.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a lot less than now, right? 84, you said.
Yes. I have, like, for my body at least, I found out how to gain weight.
Yeah.
Or, like, the best way would be muscle. But I cannot 100% say, since I'm not measuring the muscle mass every time.
But when you weighed 78, how was the Maltese feeling then?
Really light. Really light.
Exactly.
But it also had, like, a downside, since I was also feeling a bit of less energyful, because having low carbs will or can be problematic with your energy level, especially during workouts.
So keto is high protein, low calorie, right?
Yes.
All right.
Low or no calorie.
Yeah. Also, fasting is another thing. By the way, our second podcast guest, Jordan, is all into this. So when you see him on Friday, you can have a chat with him about it as well. And my friend Valdas, who recently competed on Sunday in the Barbender Static Cup, he is now a big fan of fasting. So how do you do fasting? Like,
you have to gradually, like, build it up. Right now, I'm not doing so much dieting. I'm just trying to look at my proteins.
All right.
Because I think maintaining a diet, first of all, the best diet is the one that you really can maintain.
Stick to.
So I think sometimes you can also go off board and do a cheat meal or something like that. Because if it leads to you actually maintaining the diet, it will help you to achieve your goal.
Right.
But I don't actually want to do a diet for a long term, because I feel like I just want to use diets, you know? When I say, okay, I'm going to compete, I will do a diet 3 months before,
right,
maybe, and that's the way I want to use a diet.
So you want to goal specifically nourish your body with whatever intake you need at that moment.
Exactly, it's basically like a tool for me. It's not a lifestyle.
Yeah, I understand. Nice. So we talked about nutrition, we talked about sleep. Anything else that you do to recover?
good question.
Or were they basically?
So I think that's basically it. I don't think you should overcomplicate stuff. Because
simple.
there's this term one YouTuber brought up, but it was like a few years ago. He's not that known, but it really got stuck in my head. It's called analytical paralysis. You know.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a brain guy. That means I'm thinking a lot about stuff, and if I also tend to overthink, and at some point it's really not that good. You should just, it's some situations you should just like do it and not think too much about it.
Got it.
And that's basically the same thing for dieting, for sleeping, for training. Of course, you should stick to a broad plan, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's always some factors that come from the outside, you know, that you need to adapt to.
Yeah, so you need to be flexible and just adapt. All right. Very interesting. So do you have any specific goals for the future, or what are you working towards now?
Right now, I tried to apply for medicine.
All right.
And I will try to actually study and become a doctor.
All right, cool.
But that's the long-term goal. And for the short-term goals, I would love to, like, I'm trying to find a area where I really like to enjoy working, and that would be probably sports physiotherapy. But the bad thing about it is most of the sports physiotherapists I've met, they are saying, Yunis, don't do it. It's not a profitable
Really? Okay.
profitable branch, you know, like
Doesn't make you enough money or not much.
Yes, it's basically for people that are passionate about their job.
Right.
And it's really motivating to work with athletes, for me at least.
I can imagine.
So that's what I'm going to try to do.
So you have to choose between the two, or are you definitely going to do that work?
I will definitely do both. I will try to keep it balanced in between.
You want to combine the studies with working in sports?
Yeah, maybe if the work has to be less because of the studies, it will have to be a bullet I have to take. But
will be intense.
Yeah, I finished my bachelor's degree in physiotherapy, in December or November last year. Thanks. And fun fact, I wrote my thesis about calisthenics as well.
All right.
Yeah. So
specifically on Maltese.
Exactly.
Really?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But nice.
That would have been cool. But I think the people that would have my teachers that would have given me like a grade, or professors, they would have understood nothing, or not not that much, because they're not into the sport or the topic in general.
I imagine. And one thing that I thought of was that the arm length is also an important thing, right? Do you have long arms, or is it? Are you lucky?
I don't know. I've not measured it. It's I've never measured my arms.
Right.
But of course, levers are going to impact skills. Right. Levers and weight.
Yeah.
100%. It's simple biomechanic rules.
True.
But what I want to give away, like one message I also want to give out is if you're a bit taller and heavier, you should not really stick to it and say, okay, I'm 190 or I'm 186 or 188 whatsoever, and I weigh 90 kg or 100 kg.
Right.
Because whenever you tell that to yourself and you keep on telling that and keep on telling that to yourself, you will never really sort of reach the point where you're focusing really on achieving the skills of your dreams, because deep inside of your mind, you tell yourself, I'm too heavy, I'm too tall.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the case, maybe it's going to be harder to achieve something or any skill, but that doesn't mean you will not be able to achieve the skill. Maybe it will take a bit longer to achieve the skill, but that should not be a problem. You should really not give so much about your height and weight.
Right. Well, on that note, that's super nice, man. Like, yeah, indeed. I think you have already inspired a lot of people at your height and weight to get into this, and I hope, yeah, you'll keep doing that. You're also going to compete in the future, or
Yes, I will definitely compete, but
this year in the nationals in Germany, or
I was not planning on doing it
Okay.
originally. Maybe it's going to be spontaneous again.
all right,
But
all right. Because
at
I
the
would have
moment, I just focus on getting stronger, and yeah, I will definitely have to put in some more time on career like physiotherapy as well.
yeah,
So let's see what the future brings.
exactly. Very nice. Looking forward. I hope to see you next year at the Static Cup, the Barbender Static Cup. That would be
Is it going
nice.
to take place next year
Yeah,
as well?
it is.
Okay,
At the end of the
that's
comp, they
cool.
asked, "Will we see you next year?" So,
Would be nice. I saw the live stream this year.
Yeah.
It
I'll,
would be motivating.
the battles are on our channel, and I hope to film you next year as well. And I can connect you to Ali from Barbenders, who will also be our next guest. And on that note, there is actually a tradition in this podcast where you get to write down a question for the next guest, but
Okay.
also the former guest, Jordan, has put a message in here for you. So I don't know what the question is,
Okay, Jordan.
but here you go.
Okay, Jordan. I don't know you that much, but let's go. I hope you're not going to put me in a bad spot with this one.
Nah, he won't.
Okay, should I read it out?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Oof.
That's a deep one.
It is. It is.
Oh, man. What would it be? I think... What would it be, man?
It's actually good that you have to think about it this much.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, because I'm pretty, like, I have accepted myself like I am, and I think it's good to. I mean, everybody has their flaws, you know. What could I change about myself? I could take more action, I think.
All right.
Especially when it comes to future decisions, and maybe try to take bigger risks, you know. That's one thing that I want to improve myself on, especially when it comes to new stuff, because it's easy to stay in your comfort zone. You've probably heard it a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it basically applies to every situation in life, especially if you maybe want to become an independent worker and build your own business like Jordan did.
Right.
And I think he took a lot of risks for that as well. And that's actually something that I really look up to. Yeah, I need to be able to do that. That's actually one thing.
Calculated risk, manage
Yes.
risk.
Exactly.
What would I change about myself? I can sometimes be a bit of a pleaser, as in that I always want to take, I want to keep people happy, and sometimes I might sacrifice myself for it, but I mean, I am very aware of it, so that's a good thing. And then sometimes I can be, like accepting it, or I can change it up anyway. Sometimes I don't let people walk over me or anything like that.
Yeah.
But here and there, I might just have to make different decisions. But I'm not thinking about a specific one right now. So it's not like that at the moment is a thing in my life, but I need to be aware of it constantly to just like also take care of myself and to be happy as I am and as you did as well. Accept yourself as you are.
That's important, because like sometimes you want to help people really much, and I really know the feeling, since it's basically one of the reasons I became a physio.
Right.
Like a physio should not be a maximum selfish person, I would say.
Yeah.
Because you're actually trying to help people, and yeah, I can totally relate with what you're saying.
Very nice. So yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you. It was a very nice conversation. I think it adds a lot of value. I hope I asked enough questions about the Maltese. It's like you are the master, so and because you
definitely learn a lot more.
Yeah, of course. But then they can just contact you on Instagram maybe if you keep it up. And for the rest, we want to thank our viewers for watching. We hope we offered a lot of value in this podcast. And we also want to invite you to check our 2 first podcast episodes with Eloy Naring's Dutch champion and with Jordan Vliegen, who is gym owner of a very big community he has at his gym as well in Maastricht about street lifting. So check it out, and we hope to see you in the next one as well. And have a good day.
Man, this question, Jordan's question. Man, these unnatural smiles. They always get.